Hello, my students. This is Mr. Jacobson, and today we're going to be discussing the Protestant Reformation. It's going to begin around 1517. A lot's going to be going on at this time. This is also simultaneous with what we discussed with the Renaissance. So during the Renaissance, there was also the Protestant Reformation that began. This is going to be where the people are going to start questioning the church, in particular the Catholic Church and its supremacy as the primary church of God. So let's begin. So I just have a quick tree here, and you can see how this where Christianity is. This is now the Catholic Church. This is the Eastern Orthodox Church that came out of the Byzantine Empire. And then you're going to see all these breakoffs, which will include all these other churches as well, as you can see here. So we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. So Jan Hus was the leader of the Protestant movement who challenged the Catholic Church in Bohemia. He was tried as a heretic in 1415 and burned at the stake. And that's pretty much going to be the MO for anybody who challenges the Catholic Church. Um, they'll be they'll be called a heretic, which will basically mean that they are kicked out of the church, that they are an enemy to God in general, and second, they're going to be killed. And an excruciating way to be killed, of course, would be by fire, which also had a purification connotation to it. Johann Gutenberg, he developed the first mechanical printing press using movable type around 1439, revolutionizing book publishing throughout Europe. This first major project, the Gutenberg Bible, marked a historical change in printing. As you can see, the Bible was, because of Gutenberg's press, was now available to the masses, meaning the people, rather than just one per cathedral that was written in Latin that they had to rely on priests to translate for them. Desiderius Erasmus was a Dutch scholar of the early 16th century who believed in reforming the church from within. In 1516, he published his new Greek and Latin version of the New Testament. His own works were prohibited by order of Pope Paul VI. So, Erasmus here, he's going to try to he's not going to try, he doesn't want to break away from the Catholic Church. He wants to make the changes within the Catholic Church for them to be more in line with the teachings of the Bible. So Erasmus isn't necessarily trying to break away like Martin Luther and Calvin and all these others are going to do. He's more trying to change the Catholic Church from within to go back to the original intent of the Bible. Martin Luther is a German priest. Martin Luther began the Protestant Reformation. He challenged Pope Leo X's support of the sale of indulgences to raise money for the church. Now, an indulgence was a full or partial remission of sins granted by the church. The person committing the sin was required to confess to a priest. Corrupt church leaders abused the indulgence as a way to raise money for building projects or personal gain. So, the indulgences, it was this idea that you could, in essence, buy forgiveness from God. You still had to confess to the priest, but if you did some heinous crime like murder or something, you could pay a lot of money and receive some atonement for it. And it was this idea that God could, you could buy forgiveness from God. And that was not something that was ever preached or taught or even written about in the Bible. Some people, like Martin Luther, had a major problem with it. They felt like it was a corrupt practice and that um, it was being used to raise money, and uh, and he felt like that was a wrong use of religion. Martin Luther, in his objections to self-indulgences, he wrote all his objections in a text called the 95 Theses. He posted the thesis on the door of the Castle Church in Wittenberg, Germany on October 31st, 1517. He preached that salvation could only come through the grace of God, not from the deeds of men. Luther was charged with heresy in 1521 at the Diet of Worms. He was made an outlaw by Emperor Charles V and excommunicated by Pope Leo the Tenth. So um, Luther is really feeling the effects of going against the status quo, being the Catholic Church. Not only did he get excommunicated, but now he's an outlaw by the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, which is Charles V. Luther's work and teachings led to the founding of the Lutheran Church. He translated the entire Bible into German in 1534. John Calvin was a French theologian and founder of Calvinism. He broke from the Catholic Church around 1530 and began contributing to the Protestant Reformation in Switzerland. In 1526, he published Institutes of the Christian Religion, a theological reference from Reformed churches. John Wycliffe or Wycliffe preached for reform of the Church of England during the 14th century. His supporters were called Lollards. This is the extent of the influence that Wycliffe had in Great Britain. Wycliffe translated the Vulgate Bible into English in 1382. The Vulgate Bible was a Latin version translated by Saint Jerome between 382 and 405 BC, CE, AD CE. So Wycliffe, he's going to take the Vulgate Bible, which is written in Latin, and he's going to translate it into English so that more people in England will be able to read it and not have to rely on. See, people would go to church and they would ask well, what does the scriptures say to a priest about this topic? And the priest would open up the scriptures, and it was in Latin, and not everyone knew Latin at this time. Latin wasn't, it was a language, but it wasn't necessarily popular. It definitely wasn't the vernacular of the time. And the Pope would act like he's not Pope, but priest or anyone would act like they're reading from the Bible, but they could easily just make anything up because the people are illiterate in that they don't know Latin, which wasn't common language at that time. So then the priest could easily say, "Yeah, the Bible says you should give all your living to a priest, and God will bless you for it." And what are they going to do? They can't really challenge them. They're supposed to trust them, and they can't say, "Well, it doesn't say that." So it left for a lot of abuse. So Wycliffe wanted to give the Bible in the English language so people could actually read it and know for themselves what it says. Um, William Tyndale, he translated the New Testament into English in 1525. In 1536, he was condemned to death for heresy. He was strangled to death while tried at the stake. Then his body was burned. William Tyndale was killed by it's kind of, well, I'll describe it. As you can see, here's a picture, and he's at this stake right here. And what they do is they have a strap of leather, and at the ends of both ends of the strap of leather are rings. So then they put the leather around the neck, and then the rings are back here, and then the guard puts a stick through both the rings and starts twisting. And the more he twists, the more constricted the leather becomes until it completely cuts off the air circulation of the throat, and you die by asphyxiation or strangulation. And then after that, you get burned as a sign of some kind of purity. So William Tyndale, he translated the New Testament into English, and he translated the New Testament from the original Greek. And that's the thing, is that Tyndale went a little further than Wycliffe in that he went straight to the source. The New Testament was originally written in Greek, so that's as close as you can get to the original source. And then he also translated the Hebrew Bible from Hebrew to English and not Latin. So, anyway, okay, let's move on. Okay, where am I at here? I'm over here. Okay. So the Knights' Revolt of 1522 was a popular uprising of the German Knights against the Roman Catholic Church and the Holy Roman Empire. Franz von Sickingen was elected to lead the Brotherly Convention of Knights. He was influenced by Ulrich von Hutten, Protestant knight and humanist. The Knights did not have support of the nobility and were quickly defeated. Peace of Augsburg. Charles V signed the peace treaty, giving official status to Lutheranism in the Holy Roman Empire. Anabaptists were part of the radical Reformation movement of the 16th century. They interpreted biblical texts literally and instituted practices such as believers' baptism and emphasized direct relationship with God over church ritual. You have the Amish, the Hutterites, and the Mennonites who who came out of the Anabaptist movement. And then we're back to the tree. So as you can see, we discussed what happened here. This is the Protestant movement that Lutheran began, and this is where Calvin came in. He lived in France, and we have a lot of um, of things coming out of Calvinism and Lutheranism. Here's Protestant, here's Lutheranism, here's the Anabaptist. Down here you have the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormons, the Adventists, known as the Seventh-day Adventists, and the Christian Science. Calvinists, you got the Reformed, you have Presbyterian, you got Baptist. Up here you got the Church of England, because even the King of England broke away from the Catholic Church and started his own church, and that led to many offshoots as well, including the Methodist Church and Pentecostal Church, which are very popular today. So, anyway, that's it. Go ahead and write your one-page summary, and I look forward to seeing you at the first of the week. Bye bye.